right, welcome. Guys, we're going to start a new lesson today, and it is called polynomials. The word poly means many, nomials means terms. You'll notice a couple of rules about a polynomial. If your exponent is a fraction, like in example 1 here, or 2, remember if it's a negative exponent, it's a fraction, and that exponent's a fraction, it is not a polynomial. The second rule is you cannot have an exponent on the bottom of your fraction. It cannot be the denominator. So we're going to classify polynomials by terms and degree. Each term is going to be separated by either an addition or a subtraction sign. And this is an example of what we call a quadratic trinomial. And I'll go over this a little bit more after we go over the names. Okay? So let's start by the number of terms. Okay? Again, terms are separated by addition or subtraction. And these names may seem very familiar to you. So if you have a monomial, that is going to be 1. Binomial is 2 terms. Trinomial is 3 terms. And anything that is greater than 3 terms, we're going to call a polynomial. The second way we name a polynomial is by the degree. And a degree is just a fancy name for an exponent. So the degree of the polynomial, the name is going to be the largest degree or the largest exponent in your polynomial. So let's go over the names first, and then we'll talk about how we're going to classify them. So a constant would mean that you have no degree, or basically no exponent, just a number. Linear would indicate that you have one exponent. So for instance, something like 3x. Quadratic would mean that your exponent is 2. So for instance, 3x squared. Cubic would mean your exponent is 3. So an example would be like 3x to the 3rd power, or cubed. I'm sure you've heard that word before. So guess what quartic is? Quartic is to the 4th degree or power. So that would be an example of a quartic. And going in order, I bet you guys already know that quintic is going to be 5. Okay? So here would be an example of a quintic. Now, what we're going to do here is we are going to arrange what is called the standard form. And the terms of the polynomial are placed in descending. So we're going to go from the largest degree to the smallest degree. That is called the standard form. And then the leading coefficient is just the very first number in your polynomial. Okay, so if you look at this example here, you are going to be calling this a quadratic. Quadratic because it is to the what? 2nd power. Trinomial because there's 1, 2, 3 terms. Just like the example up here. Here's another example of a quadratic. Again, that is because the highest exponent is 2. Trinomial, those 3 terms. The leading coefficient in that example is 5. 2 would be a constant. And you'll notice this is in standard form because it goes from the highest to the lowest. So what I'd like you to do now, if you would like, is why don't you see if you could go ahead and do the examples here. So if you want to pause the video, see if you could figure these out. I will give you a second. And then we're going to go over these. So you're going to tell me the degree. You're going to classify it by degree, which means you're going to tell me the name. And classify it by terms means the name by how many terms there are. All right, again, I am going to give you a moment to do that. So again, if you want to pause the video, pause it now. And then we're going to go over the bottom part. And then you're going to start a few of these on your own. Okay. All right, so let me just bring this up a little. All right, you ready? Let's go. All right, so on A, you'll notice that the degree is 0, which means there's no exponent. So if the degree is 0, then we are going to call this a constant. And classify it by terms, well, there's only one term. So we're going to call it a monomial. One term. The second one, we have an exponent. You'll notice there is no degree, but don't we assume that it's a 1 there, right? So we have a degree of 1, which would put that into the linear category. And remember, terms are separated by addition or subtraction, so we have 2 terms. So we are going to have a binomial. All right, the third example, C. Degree 2. We call the degree of 2 a quadratic. And we have 2 terms. So this is another example of a binomial. Again, you'll notice on all of these are what we call standard form because we're going from highest to lowest. And you always need to put these in standard form. So if these were kind of mixed up, you would have to rearrange them and make sure that always your highest degree is first. D is already in standard form. So if you'll notice, 3 would be the degree, which gives the name cubic. And how many terms do we have? Well, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. Remember, anytime we go over 3 terms, we are going to call this a polynomial. And the last one The degree is going to be 4. That name is going to be quartic. And we have 1, 2, 3 terms. So a 3-term is called a trinomial. Again, you will notice that all of these are put in standard form. So let me just give you one more example. Let's say I had one here. Just going to make up one. Now, if you want to put this in standard form, which I want all of them in standard form usually, you're just going to have to rearrange it. So we're going to have to put this term first. Okay. Then that's a positive, so that would be a plus 3x squared. That is the constant, okay? So now it's in standard form, and if you wanted to name it, it is going to be a quartic, right? And then we have 1, 2, 3, trinomial. What is the leading coefficient in this one? Again, leading coefficient just means what is the first number next to the variable. So in this case, it would be -4.